Okay, we're going to be taking apart the LG G7. First thing, as always, what you need to do, remove the SIM tray, which is located on the top, which we've already done so. Here's the phone itself. Next thing, what you want to do, heat up the back so it makes the adhesive a little loose so you can pry the back off easier. Once you heat it up, use any sort of pry tool, any plastic tool will do so it doesn't damage the frame. I'm going to use a guitar pick and my nail. So once you heat the back up, start at the bottom corner or any of the corners you want. Now since we've already done this once, it's going to be easier to pry the back off for us. So I'm just going to let you guys know, for you guys it might be a little bit harder. So just be patient and don't do it too fast so you damage the back or possibly break it. Okay, once you get your pry tool in, just gently work your way all the way around. There's a lot more adhesive over here on the top side, so over here is going to be a little more difficult to remove, so your first time might be more difficult than it looks for me. So this is the back plate right here. And this is what it looks like with the back off. Okay, so once you have the back plate off, you have 14 Phillips screws you need to remove throughout the phone. Go ahead and remove those. Okay, once you removed all 14 screws, you're going to remove the plastic covers that are covering the board. So pop this one off. This has your speaker underneath it right here, and also has your antenna lines running through it. So again, as I've mentioned in other videos, if you're ever having any reception issues or any Wi-Fi issues or anything involving antennas, these are the first things I would look at, because these are the signals, these are what gives signal to the phone. These lines, there's these tan color or gray color lines running through the plastic. They make a connection on the board, and that's what gives a signal. You have your wireless charging pad right here. You also have some antenna lines running through here. You see these lines right here. You see the gold points over here. They touch on the board, which makes it a connection. Next, you're going to disconnect the battery cable, which is right over here next to the cameras. Pop it off. After you disconnected the battery, go ahead and disconnect the rest of the cables. You have one on top over here. Once you disconnected that one, you have one on the bottom over here. Disconnect this one. And you have your screen cable over here. Pop that off. Now you're going to lift the main board away from the mid frame. You lift it off from the top. And there's a cable underneath here that runs for the charger port. It's attached underneath the board, so be careful you don't tear it. You're going to lift it forward towards you. It's connected right here underneath. You have to disconnect that cable. Now once you disconnect it, you can see over here on the back of the board, there's thermal paste. And you can see over here there's a heat pipe, copper heat pipe over here. Here's your vibrator motor, your earpiece. You have the cable for your screen right here. You have the cable over here that leads to your charger port. And you have this one over here as well. You have your battery over here. And your power switches for the volume and power button are over here. And the other switch over here on the other side. Now go ahead and disconnect your headphone jack cable over here. Attach it to a small board that's on the charger port. Move the cable away. And you're going to pry the cable for the charger port up. Here's your charger port. This has your microphone over here which you speak into. You have your headphone jack right here. Okay, so you're gonna remove your headphone jack by just popping it up. Now to remove the battery, there's some adhesive on the other side. Just gently pry it off. It's going to take some time, but we already took it off once, so it's going to be a little bit easier for us. Here's the battery. Now pretty much you're left with the mid frame, the vibrator motor, the earpiece, and your screen. And if you ever break your screen, if you have to replace it, you're gonna have to heat it up from the back over here. And you'll have to pry up the screen cable over here that's over here taped pretty much onto the mid frame. Just pry it off and you would lift your screen from the bottom up over here and remove it. Same way, reverse, add your new screen, put the cable back through the frame, and reassemble the phone. So now we're going to go ahead and put the phone back together. We're going to put the battery back in place. Put the headphone jack back in. Put the charger port assembly back in. Now connect the headphone cable back onto that small board for the charger port assembly. Once that's connected back in, take your main board. You're going to reattach it to the cable down here. Once that's connected, make sure this cable doesn't get stuck underneath it, and also the screen cable. Lift all your cables, make sure they don't get stuck. Go with the battery cable out. Now set your board back in place. And once that's in place, just go ahead and connect all the cables again. Now last, connect your battery cable back on to the main board. Okay, now that you have the battery cable back in, put the plastic covers back over. Just pop it back in. Put the bottom one with the speaker back in as well. Now once you have all the pieces back in, go ahead and put all 14 Phillips screws back. Now once you have all screws back in place, go ahead and put the back cover back on. Now you can apply some heat and put pressure on the back cover so the adhesive takes hold again. And go ahead and power on the phone, and you're done.